So now we're on to our next session, and I believe we have a panel now, another panel. So I would like to welcome to the stage to talk about how to create powerful web store experiences direct to consumer in 2024. We have a panel moderated by Sam from Xsolla, I believe, with panelists Tayber from A Thinking Ape, Saad from Miniclip, Saad from Tilting Point, and Danny from SciPlay. So if those folks are in the room, please come to the stage.
Greetings, people. Hello. We got a pretty interesting panel here today. I think we're going to start up with some quick intros and then dive into what's been going on last week, which was pretty crazy, and then we'll talk about web stores. So quick intros, Tayber, Saad, Danny.
But before we start, Chris James is in the room. 10
Chris
years,
James.
Pocket Gamer. Everybody, round of applause.
Woo!
Chris James. No, stand up, Chris.
Come on, get up.
Come on. 10 years. 10 years. 10 years. Okay.
Congratulations.
Yeah. Last time I was here, he was moderating. But he's got too big for us now.
You're too big for us.
No, I'm not. I'm still here. Sorry.
Thank you. Tayber, you can now go.
I'm Tayber, and I am the CEO of A Thinking Ape, and we make sort of mid-core games with a more casual theme on them. So our biggest game is Party in My Dorm, and it's a college simulator that's secretly a 4X game, and that's sort of our niche.
I'm Saad from Miniclip. Upset that the other Saad wasn't here. I'm not being on a panel with two Saads. Miniclip, we've been around for 21 years, browser games, then started in mobile. 8-Ball Pool, we acquired Cybo 2 years ago, so Subway Surfers, and then I guess the other game, which is not much of a secret now, but Triple Match 3D, published under Boombox. I think everybody knows that's us at this point now. We were trying to be clever.
Weren't very.
Yeah, clearly not. So yes, that's us.
Danny Moy, Chief Strategy Officer at SciPlay. We're predominantly social casino right now. We've been trying to expand lightly, I guess, into the casual space via IAA games. That's who we are.
Great, and I'm Sam Gaglani. I'm the EVP of Global Business Development at Xsolla, and I'm happy to call 3 of these companies our partners. And thank you guys so much for coming today. I know it's a busy day for you all, so I appreciate it. So I think we probably should talk about all the craziness that happened last week and all the swirl about Apple and Epic and what happened and all the gray areas that seem to have been created. I think for me, the key takeaway was they're still going to charge you for steering people inside of the app to a store, and that's going to be 27%. And I think the key takeaway that I got was it just gives you more of a reason to build a really unique and powerful web store experience. For you guys, I'm very curious to see what you think about what happened last week and if that will be basically a repeat of what's going to happen in March for the Digital Markets Act. Anyone can go first. Saad.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's an interesting time. I just don't know how censored I need to be, as we talked about.
I get it. Yep.
But I think, look, everybody needs to have a web store now. I think that's just happening. Clearly, the platforms are taking an aggressive stance against what the regulatory environment is. But I think at the end of the day, all of us are on this stage, and obviously we partner with Xsolla. Many of us are starting to see significant revenue come through our web stores now. And that's without doing any of the things that if the DMA comes into force and we understand how some of these policies are being constructed, we don't really push anybody into our web store at the moment, save for a few things that we've done in the past, because obviously Miniclip comes from a web background. I think maybe you guys did some social games, no? Not as much. So for us, there was always that kind of history of people paying, and we actually had some users who were still kind of using the web version as well. So that kind of helped. And I think we're all safe to say some of our games have 30% of their revenues going through Web Store now.
Yep.
I think that's pretty common for all of that, right? Yeah.
Well, on our side, we're still like testing, optimizing, ramping, so we're probably not as high as a percentage as you just quoted. So one, I agree with you. So this year and going forward, web stores and direct-to-consumer experiences are going to become increasingly more important. Now it's about, okay, how do you, at least for how we think about it, is how do we expose our players to it, right? Obviously without explicitly like violating policies. But for us, it's really about focusing on the player experience. It's always been like that. Like, the ones that you're going to initially expose that web store experience is people that already play and pay in your game. So it's already working today. So our mindset is like, look, it's not broken, so don't create too much friction and don't cause something artificial that's just not natural for the player. Like today they're already like paying. I'd rather get that dollar today than not, and then creating some friction and potentially not getting that dollar from that payment from that player, right? So we're really meticulous and methodical about, okay, how do we expose it to the player and then giving them the right experience so that they feel comfortable, they feel safe, and they feel that, at the end of the day, there's added value, right? Until we figure out how to do things exactly inside the app, there is going to be a little bit of friction. But, from a player perspective, they just need to understand, like, hey, by me going even through a little bit of player friction, that there's true value, for them.
Any opinion?
Yeah, so I think on the topic of Apple and Google, is this being recorded?
Yes.
Yeah, I think you should never jeopardize your relationship with Apple and Google. However, the way that we approach it is we kind of think about how do we create a connection with our customer. They find us through the app, through the app stores, but really we have people who've been playing our games for 10, 15 years, and we want to create connections with them so that no matter what happens, they're our customer. And so that's our goal, is to find ways to service the customer, however they want to be serviced. Some people maybe are playing on multiple devices. They might be playing across multiple stores. They might have 10 accounts, and you want to figure out how to give them the best experience possible. And some of them live in other countries where payment profiles are different. And so it's all about connecting to your customer. And we have this pillar at our studio, which is anybody who becomes a customer, we should try to make them a customer for life. And so we're trying to create these direct connections with the customer so that they stick around. Only a small percentage of your users is going to convert to an IAP. And so you should be building those connections, and yeah, that's how I think about it.
Yeah, okay, so do you want us to be a bit like real about what's happening?
Let's be real, Saad.
Okay, so right.
I don't know this guy.
Here we go.
Let's go. All right. So who here thinks, and this is no bad against anybody who works there, because let's be honest, all of our Apple account managers are great, right?
Absolutely.
Right? No. But they are. They're great people. They really, they've really tried to help us as an ecosystem. But at the same time, it's always been clear to me that Apple doesn't really care about games. Mm-hmm. That's my view. Who else believes that's the case? One, two, well, not enough of you, clearly. So, all right. A lot of our Apple Arcade money in here, then, clearly. So I think Apple hasn't really worried about games, but what's happened through Epic, going through, basically flying the flag for developers on this thing. What I think we've established is, and what they've probably established is, oh, wow, well, actually, a lot of this revenue comes from this category. Yeah. Right? And they'll point to, I know Apple says, oh, well, we have a games tab on the App Store. And it's like, we have the Today thing and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. But, okay, 3-4 years ago, was organics higher or lower than it is today for everybody? Higher 4 years ago, right? So organics have gone off. So, okay. So the stores not really helped us in terms of that, which is actually what they're really there for, right? That was the value exchange.
That was the value prop. Right?
Yeah, and I think Xsolla, having worked with you guys from the web days for many years, I think what Tim was showing at Epic was, but this is payment processing now.
Pure.
It's pure payment processing, and that's why Xsolla's on our lanyards, right? Because that's what's happening, right? The customer experience, and that's why the web shop experience that we're all going to create and how we want to engage our communities becomes really important. Yeah. The payment processing, you guys have handled that for the last, 15, 20 years we've been working together almost?
Long time.
Long time, right?
Long time.
So what are the platforms doing, in particular Apple, to really add the value there, right? Well, you talk about friction. Apple Pay is a separate API to the App Store. You guys can already dig into that, right? So again, that's even more payment processing. So, I do have sympathy for Google. I think Google does a much better job in adding value, in helping us. And I think they've got much more robust developer tools, and they've had much more engagement with us than others. And I think, when that was how they applied the ruling, I'm just saying, it's 27%, all that stuff, it just felt like they weren't really trying to engage again. And they're just trying to protect that walled garden again. And I think that's where, ultimately, we will see this get more difficult as time goes on. So I don't know how the policies will change. That's the issue.
I agree, and I want to let Danny and yourself weigh in, but I totally agree with you. I think that 27% is going to stick around for a while. They're going to make it incredibly hard to go lower, and it just points to the fact that if you're going to try and monetize outside of those stores, you need a powerful web store. And I think everyone understands that, but it's now about understanding what that means to create a powerful web store, how to behaviorally train users to go there, and then retain them in that ecosystem. And you guys have done a really good job at that. But I do want to let you guys weigh in on what Saad just said, if you want to. Wade,
being recorded, right? Yeah.
Wade carefully.
I mean, I think you kind of said it all. I don't want to.
So you agree? Just say that.
Yeah, maybe.
See, it's like the Illuminati. They're not even here.
They're everywhere. They're in my pocket.
I'm sure Johnny's in the back somewhere.
I mean, I agree with everything that Saad has said. It's like, historically, there were probably a lot of reasons why you can justify that 30%, right? Like Saad said, a lot of it came from that distribution and that marketing, right? Helping you get in front of the players, but that's just not as abundant, right? We all know, right? Like the whole organic and the featuring and all that, it's just not there, and it's also not as effective. And then effectively, they're just providing they're a payment processor, right? At the end of the day, right? So, any business person is going to sit there and be like, should it cost me 30%, just to help me process like a payment?
Yeah.
So that's just a reality. But I think it comes down to, I don't know, I think maybe there's always been a debate on who actually owns the customer, right?
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the day, we, as games, right, we work hard and we pay a lot of money, right, to acquire that customer, right? We want to be able to have access to that customer and communicate to that customer as much as possible, right? And, introduce them to new ways to potentially play the game, more engaging ways, and even new ways to pay, right? So I think a lot of it's going to come down to that debate, who actually owns the customer? Does Apple actually really own the customer, or do we own the customer? Or is it joint? But for game developers, we always feel hey, we own the customer. We work hard just to, like I said, not only to acquire it, but to maintain, right? We also have this philosophy. It's all about player retention and also payer retention, right? We try to retain them for life, just like you guys do. So, we're out there fighting and battling. We're going to have to find, different creative ways to continue to engage that player, communicate with that player, and figure out how to, prolong their activity within our ecosystem.
I think the thing that confuses me is I don't know what the end game is for Apple here. I don't. Mm-hmm. That's what I don't understand. And that's what I find frustrating. Is not that they want to have control over their own ecosystem. That makes sense. I just don't. Other than battling Epic, because for whatever reason, I don't see what their end game is here for making developers want to be on the platform. And something, I don't want to say too much bad about Apple, obviously, but I was really alarmed that they actually published a puzzle game in the App Store. So they have a puzzle game in News, and they're self-publishing it, and that was pretty alarming to me. And as a developer, I see that, and I see this ruling, and I have a lot of frustrations and questions about the relationship, and it's difficult to know what the end game is. And you have your Apple rep, and you work with them on a specific set of goals within the App Store, but overall, I don't know. Oh, I'm supposed to pick up my kid from school. There you go.
That's Apple calling you.
That's Apple.
You've been rejected.
Yeah,
rejected.
That fast.
That next submission is not passing.
Oops.
Saad, did you want to say something?
No, I was just I think they're vertical, right? So when they publish the puzzle game and they do all those stuff, we've seen how that goes.
Yeah.
it's the same with content. They have Apple TV Plus, right, as well. So
Correct.
I think that is where they will go, but then also they know that they can't make the experiences we make as well. Yeah. I think what is interesting though is it's very interesting that whenever you're trying to launch a new platform, you know, they got the visor coming, right?
Yeah.
They're going to lean on games. They're going to lean on that.
They need content.
They need content.
Yeah.
And I think it is going to be interesting how they try and engage with the developer community.
It's a push-pull relationship right now.
They've done some stuff which we've looked at where they've support certain developers in doing some things, but then not other developers on other things. And it's, if I was in the social casino space, I've been frustrated with all platforms for a long time because they've just, they've not supported you guys for years, but still taking the revenue shares for from now until, and actually that's just changed recently, hasn't it? And that's interesting in terms of RNG on Google, right?
You mean in terms of what they're making available for developers and publishers?
Yeah.
So, I would say traditionally, social casino is probably an overlooked category or genre by the platforms. But it's improved over the last couple of years. As you explain to them like how the industry works, the type of games, at least in my opinion, they start to realize it's like any other free-to-play game, right? It starts with that simple core loop, and then you try to monetize around it with some type of meta and live ops, and that's what's going to drive the monetization and the revenue. So it's just like any other game that's out there, And then, it's not for me to decide, it's someone's personal opinion whether or not it mimics real money, gambling or real money gaming, or it simulates that. But that's not a conversation for here or there. But yeah, for a long time, it's you talk about the support that developers used to get. I'm pretty sure Social Casino did not get that at all, right? Zero, right? So it's even more of a battle and a war out there, for Social Casino when we go and acquire and reacquire and retarget players, right? So again, you spend a lot of not only money on it, but a lot of hard work and effort, and we have to, in order to stay competitive, we have to do everything that we can to try to figure out how to retain that player, in the ecosystem.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing in the kind of the general sense I've been getting this week and last week was that Apple's going to definitely hold the line. There's a big sense of frustration among game developers and publishers about creating these incredible games, yet giving away a big chunk of it away. And that's where I think these web shops have become a really powerful tool to shift players out of those marketplaces and onto a store you own, create, and can retain those players for a long time. So, and we only have 14 minutes, so I want to talk about because you've done a really good job with creating a web store. What were the big challenges, of setting it up, understanding how not to blow up your economy, and then once it's set up, making those players come back again and again and again? Because the one thing I've noticed with web shops sometimes is some of the approach has been it's just a top-up page, and it's stale, and it just stays there, and you don't get a lot of people coming back to it. So it almost becomes this living organism that you kind of have to feed and tend to. So I'm curious what you were faced with, because your experience I think is going to be different from what your experience is and your experience was.
Yeah, so I think for us, we already had an email login system.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So we are a little bit ahead of the game because we could already connect with our customers directly. Yeah. But it certainly made it more important, and we spent some time making that system even better. And so what we really focused on is once we have that connection with them, how do we service the customer in the best way possible? Mm-hmm. And whether that's through the Apple App Store or through the Google Play Store or through an Xsolla web shop, we want to make sure that the customer has as many opportunities to convert as possible at the price points that they want for the goods that they want. And once you have that sort of set up and you get a good relationship with your customer, you can sort of find ways to make it relevant to them to go to a web store. And what we actually see is some people who shop on Xsolla will also shop on the Apple App Store.
Yeah.
It's not exclusive.
It's
not cannibalizing it. And we see a really good live ops venue for that. So we do a ton of live ops around the web shop, but we do that with all of our IAPs. And we treat them a little bit differently, but the fundamentals are still the same.
Got it. So to draw someone in, are you creating an expected value on that store that's significantly better than that what they would see on Apple or Google?
Not necessarily. So you have to be careful how you do those sales, because you don't want people to, get too much stuff and wreck your economy. So you still have to be careful, like what you're offering. But we do offer like a reward point system.
So like a loyalty
on the
program.
web shop. Yeah,
Okay.
we have a loyalty program on the web shop, and then we sell some goods that players want in different like formats and different price points. Is the big
Got
thing.
it.
Players want higher price points than they can get.
Yeah,
on the other
absolutely.
stores. And then you can also service customers directly and work with them to find
Interesting.
what they want in the web shop, and you can publish much more quickly.
So you have an ongoing dialogue with them.
Exactly.
You have a really strong community where you're talking
Exactly.
to them constantly.
Yeah, and I think because our games are sort of structured around this like deep emerging gameplay where people are playing the games for a really long time, we've already built that habit with them of like, we're going to service you and we're going to give you the things that you want, and we have a good dialogue. We have a VIP manager that just focuses on people who want to talk to us about what they want to purchase, and that works really well for us.
So the other question I get a lot, and thank you for that, is, well, I've got this web shop up and running. How many more resources do I have to allocate? Like, I'm a small dev. Do I have to hire a whole new team, or are you just adding an additional workflow? Like, that's a big question. I know you asked it too when we were signing you up.
Once it was built, it was just an additional workflow.
Okay.
Yeah, and
Got
then
it.
we run it all through the same back end.
Okay.
Yeah, it's pretty much the same.
Got it. And Saad, for you guys, when you...
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to have to build a web shop. I'd rather not build a web shop,
Yeah.
but you kind of have to. Well, it's kind of similar to Tayber was saying. We've had a Miniclip login since the web days, so we've kind of carried that over, and there's still a lot of users who would prefer that over some of the other platforms. So we've maintained that. I think we're still learning what's the optimal way. I think everybody thinks it's going to give additional value, but that's not enough.
I agree.
That's not enough. If you think it's just like pop-up page, web shop, oh, I'm just going to give a discount on the other tiers, that just doesn't work. There's no real point in doing that.
Discount versus value. Then there's a big difference there. I think value-added bundles versus just cheapening the product.
That's
the fine line you have to draw. And when we talk about bundles that have value, I think, and this is something you guys have done a really good job at, is creating a bundle that maybe there's something in game that you could get, but now you can just buy it outright. Now you're giving them a value add. And from a social casino perspective, how have you guys, because I know you've started very incremental and very slow and you're testing it.
Yeah, so I would say two quick learnings is, one is it's not a one size that fits all. Okay,
Correct.
so
Yeah.
there has to be some level of personalization and customization. That's how our games work today already. Most of our games here, I think, except for your newer game, is you have a pretty mature user base, right? And you develop a lot of segments within that user base, and each segment has a different play behavior, different pay behavior, and they have different economies behind it, right? So that's kind of the second learning lesson. Like, hey, because it comes from the first one, the one size is not going to fit all, and then over time we're just going to have to customize, what we're showing, based on that segment and their behavior. So for some segments, I think probably for the most part, what we're seeing the early data is that you can't just do like a straight discount. Like, it may work early on, but the novelty of that will start to wear off. And then also you have a potential, like Taylor said, you could wreck the economy on some segments. So what we've learned is that it's got to be some type of value add. And then the value add, comes, it could be in the form of bundles or maybe some other thing that you can't necessarily like pay or earn inside the game, but you could do it from here, and then you can bring it back into the game. So again, there's just a lot of, we're early on, that's one, but two, there's just data that's constantly coming in, and just like, that's how free-to-play mobile games work, right? Data comes in every week or every month, and you just have to continue to iterate to find that, right balance. And even when you find that right balance, guess what? It could potentially change the next month, right? So you're kind of back to like iterating to see what works the best.
Thank you. So the other big question I get is how do you overcome the friction of getting those users into the funnel? They're having to enter new payment information sometimes, or they're scared to go to that site. Are you guys using? No, you're not seeing that.
They're not scared.
They're not. I get that. Sometimes.
People buy stuff all over the internet all the time. Every time. It's 2024. Come on.
So I think it's more casual.
We push on Xsolla, right? Like,
yeah.
you have those credentials, right? Don't make them type them in again.
Well, I've noticed when it's more of a casual game, if it's like a child having to go to the parent and say, hey, I want to buy this thing. It's not an iOS. Is there, and it doesn't sound like you have to deal with that.
Sometimes we get that where someone's like, I don't know what this charges, and it's like your kid bought some stuff on Xsolla. We try not to let kids buy stuff, so that's the first thing. But it happens, but like it's not a problem. It's not a big problem.
No, but it is different between casual and more core.
It's a different demo
definitely
for sure.
Different demo, and there's definitely different. I think casual. I think that it's single digit, nearing double digit percentage of revenue at the moment is what you'd expect from casual because of these issues.
Yep.
But I think on core you can get 30% up in terms of the revenues you can generate.
I agree.
So I think that's just the perpetual trying to get over the hurdle. You guys have to build a better product for that, and we have to build better web shop experiences for that too. I mean, casual is you still need to figure it out because I think when you talk about how do you get users into this stuff, you leverage your Discord channels, you leverage your WhatsApp channels, your Telegram channels. Yep. That's the way to really do that. And if you haven't done that, then that's also when you build web shop, you are building community. That's the whole point. It's that direct to consumer.
Thank you. So this really goes back to how do I communicate to that user that the shop exists without violating guidelines.
So what's funny is we all thought we were direct to consumer by going through Apple and Google. But when you do your own web shop, you're like, oh no, we're now really direct to consumer.
Yes.
That's the difference.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so have you guys, and I know you've been pretty good. It sounds like you have a really strong community. You already had access to them. But if you're not that savvy or you don't have that, how would you counsel someone?
We lucked out, I think, in that our players just talk about where they're talking about it.
There's a strong
they're like,
community, right?
Yeah, there's a really strong community. We have chat in game,
Yeah.
so like that's really useful.
Wow. Okay.
We have an email list, and we've been collecting emails for a decade, so
Wow.
that made it easier. But I mean, I don't know what I would say to somebody that's not doing it. Do that first.
Yeah.
Get an email login. Yeah. Like you need to own your relationship with your customer. Going forward, that's just the table stakes
name
for
of the
mobile
game,
now.
right?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know for casual. Like I don't make casual games, so I can't speak.
But I agree with you. Like if I step back, like say 10 years ago, and before we knew this, or if we knew this was all coming, to sort of ahead, I would say develop as many direct touch points as you can with your customers, right? So for the longest time, like we basically had guest accounts and relied on Facebook login, right? And you know how the connect rates on Facebook login has been dwindling for like years. So we kind of like fell behind. It's like, okay, now people aren't even connected. Like we have no direct touch point. So if I can go back in time, it's like, do the logins, do your own email login or your own form of login. If you can collect like phone numbers, great. Like definitely like email addresses because you're gonna need a way to try to contact them. Like if I can go back, that's one thing that we would probably do differently. Like just
or
to
if
get
you were
that
building a
basic
game right
structure.
now.
Or
Yeah.
partner with someone like HelpShift and have like the data for your CMs, your customer support and community managers, have the like purchasing data just like on everybody's dashboard that says like, look, someone just came into the game and they spent more money today than most players spend. Reach out to that person directly.
That's a person you
start
wanna
talking
know.
to them.
Yeah.
Get their email address. Create a connection.
Yeah.
Like can you imagine a business where like somebody comes in and they spend $10,000 and then
you
they
don't
just stop
capture
showing
their
up?
information.
And you don't capture their information, and then you're just like, well, I guess we'll do some more marketing and get some more of those. Like that's insane. Like no business operates like that. Like treat your business like it's a restaurant at this point. Like build customer
But
connection.
this is going back to what you just said, which was we just relied on Apple and Google to do that for us. And now there is this shift to an e-commerce retail mindset that I don't think a lot of publishers and developers that are newer understand, right? It's second nature to somebody like me because I came from that business. But now when I talk to people, they're like, oh, we didn't think about that. And these are kind of like basic tricks of the trade you would employ. So you have to be creative. You have to think about how am I going to get to this user and put yourself in their shoes. Like, what would I want to see on a store to make me buy it and continually go back to it?
So that's the funny thing, just to add to that, is like they're already your player.
Exactly.
That's the thing. So it's not that they're already.
You just never knew who they were
yeah,
personally.
Exactly. They're already interested in what you're doing and
Yes.
what and they want to engage with you. It's just, I think you do have to be careful about how you engage. But that's the thing. Like, we all talk about community. This is your community.
Yeah.
And it's just engaging them and trying to know a little bit more about them, where they're comfortable. That's the other thing that we should talk about as well. I think we're all sizable businesses, part of bigger groups.
Yes.
There is legal GDPR compliance and all that stuff that everybody's talked about. There is a lot of stuff that you have to do to collect some of this data and then store that data. That's not trivial.
And
There's
that's
a lot
where
of
we
work
kind
to
of
be
help
done.
solve that problem. But yes. Yeah. We have 2 minutes. Okay, so we have 2 minutes. Questions out there? No questions? I don't believe it.
Going
there has to
once.
be one question in the audience.
Going twice.
Going twice. Oh, we got one.
Thank you very much. Hi, Sally from Worldline here. So I'm part of a company that processes card payments. The question was to Sam. I think you mentioned the 27% with Apple. Is that being confirmed globally, or is that specifically
Just in the U.S. right now.
And has Europe made a decision yet?
I think you're going to find out in March what they'll do, but that's going to be regarding third-party payments and side loading. But do you know anything about that in terms of what?
Yes.
Yes?
I don't.
It's just going to be yes.
I don't know if I'm allowed to say here.
Okay.
There's a lot going on around that. I mean, but look, at the end of the day, I would prefer Apple and Google to win. I really would prefer. I don't want fragmentation. I don't want side loading. Any semblance of chance where a user thinks twice about downloading an app is bad for our industry.
Right.
And I think we're all getting excited about this, but there are going to be nefarious actors who will make that download and that install become difficult, and that's not something we want. We're not here to make it, let's take a quick buck by making our players think this is another thing. So I think the DMA is very interesting. Side loading is dangerous. I don't think that's something that we want to have to happen. And so you do want Google and Apple to win. We've seen fragmentation before. In China, it was a really fragmented ecosystem, and it wasn't helpful. It only, from the last maybe 3, 4, 5, 6 years, has that fragmentation gone. You don't want to start doing that. I don't think it will be like that here in Europe.
I agree with
you.
Yeah.
But I think ultimately what we want is we do actually want Google and Apple to win on the security side of things. We really need that.
On the side loading.
And so on side loading.
Side loading. Okay.
Well, or do a deal on, payment processing and revenue share tiers and all this kind of thing.
That are fair and equitable versus
right.
the crazy number.
But I think what this has shown is that doesn't mean that there still was not space for web stores, because
Correct.
you still need to engage the community.
Yes.
You still want to engage those people. Anyway, sorry.
Are we out of time? Oh, sorry.
A round of applause, please, for Saad.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, guys.